Okay, let's start. Hello, everyone. Welcome to CRISiSLab webinar. As we all know that earthquake early warning has two key components, social part and technical part. So we're doing both on our end in our feasibility study. For our webinars, we all invited speakers from around the world to share their findings and progress in the areas of both aspects. So last year, if some of you can recall, our social science team shared our report on the community engagement. And today, we're excited to share with you our technical findings. Our CRISiSLab team will present to you Saving Precious Seconds, a new decentralized architecture for earthquake early warning. So just introducing our etiquette, as some of you probably already familiarized it, and please put your name on the screen and use chat box to introduce yourself and your name, title, and organization. And feel free along the way, use the chat box to ask any questions or just raise your hand afterwards during that Q&A session. And our agenda is gonna be 1 hour. So the presentation will roughly last about 30 minutes and we will have 20 minutes for a Q&A session. And today we have 4 speakers. Dr. Raj Prasanna, lead of CRISiSLab and project lead of Earthquake Early Warning Project. So Raj is an expert in IoT, Internet of Things, and sensor networks. Dr. Caroline Howden is a seismologist. So she has been a senior seismologist for GNS Science for over 14 years. Now she's a seismologist at Seismosity, working on earthquakes and their impact on the built and in natural environments. And we have Dr. Amal Panjihewa. Amal is an expert in telecommunication and broadcasting. He's a researcher, educator, advisor, and consultant in ICT, media, and broadcasting, with close to 4 decades of experience in industry, academia, and research. And we have Jantujan Chandrakima. He's an RNC-funded PhD student and working on the earthquake early warning sensor ecosystems. He's one of the key contributors to technical working group of this project. And this project is kindly funded by Massey University and EQC. Cool, without further ado, I will stop sharing and let the webinar begin.
All right, I'll try to share the screen. Alicia, can you hear me? All right, cool. Let me try to share. Is it all good?
Go full screen.
Cool. All right, Kia everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And it's great to have all of you here. And it's great to share some of our technical findings. So this is the first time I think we are kind of try to share some of the technical stuff, but we have been, as Alicia mentioned, we have been engaging with you through various webinars, and we shared some of our social engagement findings. Before we go further, so the focus of this initial results we published in one of the journals is mainly focusing on the building of earthquake early warning architecture using low-cost sensors. So it's mainly focusing on the network, sensor network, and the communication between sensors and how we run algorithm using that network. So how we proceed further? So we have 4 speakers, and our technical group is much bigger. So so we are only having 4 of them, really important contributors, but we have been supported by a few others. They are not presenting today. But in addition, we have our social science group. So it's a big project team, frankly. So I will pick up with the motivation why we wanted to do this project, kind of give the background, how we went and started this project. And then Caroline will try to look at the earthquake early warning systems in general and algorithms. And Chantujan will then pick it up, look at a bit of lit review we have done specifically on low-cost earthquake early warning networks. Then Amal will elaborate our concept around the sensor network we proposed in this technical piece. So you can see more details in the paper we publish. And then Chantujan will again pick up to discuss a little bit more about the experiments we ran and findings, and then finally I'll try to sum up. So that's the kind of structure we are planning today. So let's go ahead and see why we wanted to do this work in the first place. So we had really good reason, because in New Zealand context, we don't have earthquake early warning, official earthquake early warning system in New Zealand. But we have seen that in some of the other countries, for places like Japan and even now in US and several other places, there have been sensor networks issuing earthquake early warnings have been going on for a while now. So that has been kind of an early motivation for us. And also some of our colleagues, especially Julia Becker, has been doing some investigations, explorations about people's perception about having an earthquake early warning system. So Julia ran a survey, kind of significantly large survey. So we have got some really positive results from the general public in New Zealand as well. So that's another kind of motivation for us to go and do a bit of exploration. And then the question of economic feasibility. I mean, so we understood that there's a lot of cost involved in this developing these systems. So what's the cost benefit? Is there a better way to develop this with the low cost application? And then whether we have kind of use the full potential of these available technologies, how much we can extract further, and to explore more onto novel ways of communication. And of course, very importantly, for us to make these kind of systems successful, especially in disaster domains, it is really important to have the engagement with the various stakeholders. So we believe that very much. So we wanted to create a kind of a discourse. So that has been another motivation for us. So people talk about these things, their perceptions, their views. So we thought that's another good motivation for us to start exploring this related to earthquake early warning. So that's the motivation behind the project, basically. So going into the next portion, so I'll invite Caroline to take it from here.
Thank you, Raj, and good morning, everyone. In my section, I will be presenting a very general overview of what are the components that make an earthquake early warning system. And I'll be focusing in particular on one of those components, which is the algorithm of relevance to this presentation today. So just a reminder, an earthquake early warning system is providing seconds of warning before incoming shaking. So it's important to know that the earthquake has already happened. It's not about predicting the earthquake, it's about predicting the shaking once the earthquake has already happened. So I'm just illustrating how the earthquake early warning system works here for take a New Zealand case study. This is a fake earthquake illustrated here with the epicenter centered near Hamner Springs. And so I've calculated what the ground motion would be from that particular earthquake here. I've represented the shaking intensity in units of G, so it's a unit of acceleration. And yes, so we'll start from here. So the very important and first main component, oh, sorry, next Raj, please. Aha. It's the end user. So like Alicia said, social science is a really big part of a successful early warning system. And so the end user will define two things. The first one is, what kind of alert are they interested in? Are they interested in peak shaking? So in terms of like acceleration intensities. And also they will define, or like spectral acceleration at particular period if they're interested in like tall buildings. And they will also define the threshold they're interested in. So they're very important because they will define the success of the warning. So here I've illustrated now. Our end user is interested in felt shaking, so warning people before incoming felt level of earthquake shaking is arriving, and it's roughly around in G unit, it's about 5% G. And so I've contoured the region from that particular earthquake that will be experiencing that level of shaking, at least that level of shaking, right? What the end users also provide is they provide the funding that will sustain this early warning system, and they are not cheap. They're really expensive because you have to upgrade your network, and then you have to provide regular maintenance of this network to provide reliability and trust with your end user for the early warning system. And so next slide, please, Raj. Yeah, so this is our current National Seismic Monitoring Network, GeoNet. And you can see it's not bad. It's actually the density is pretty impressive for a small country like New Zealand. And but it's not enough for an earthquake early warning system. And it was not designed to provide earthquake early warning for New Zealand. So that's fair enough. And so we're investigating, you know, what's the impact of that particular network, and talking to the end user to discuss, you know, what kind of level of investment they'd be interested in to fill up the gap and make this network more reliable for earthquake early warning. So the end user is really important. The second part, next slide, please, Raj, is our technical constraints. So this is the objective of this talk here. And there are two of them. One is the algorithm. What kind of algorithm will detect the shaking and send the alert? And then is the alert itself, the alert broadcast. I've just illustrated here. We have on the right, we have a figure that shows that's mapping region that will receive the warning for this particular 5% G of felt shaking threshold. And if we had a 30-second, an algorithm that takes 30 seconds to identify shaking is happening and send out the alert. And so you can see that, I can't see because I've got my picture on it, but now I can see. You can see that because it takes 30 seconds to identify we had an earthquake, there's strong shaking incoming. The epicentral region is in red and does not get any warning for that particular level of shaking, but region distance further away get a certain level of warning before incoming shaking. So there are many algorithms available, and this is the next part of my talk. Next slide, please, Raj. Yeah, we're not talking about the alert broadcast today, another topic. Thank you. And next slide, please, Raj. All right. So the algorithms that will derive how efficient and how fast can we send the warning. There are three main categories. The first one that I'm talking about is called single site or same site algorithm. It's based on the recording from one sensor at a particular location, and it provides the warning only at that particular location. So it's P-wave based. And so the assumption is, I've illustrated here, using data from the last week, Otago 3.8 shake. So it was beautifully recorded at two GeoNet stations here. And it was just to illustrate, so the shaking is recorded, the P-wave arrive at that particular station, and this particular algorithm is predicting the amplitude of the S-wave, incoming S-wave. Obviously, it's function of how close the station is to the epicenter, and also it's function of the complexity of the earthquake. So for a small earthquake, it might be suitable, but for very long and complex earthquakes, you're going to start getting a real mess of the waveforms coming in your P-wave coda. So I'm just illustrating again here. This is our little 3.8 Otago, relatively small, you know, it's a really tiny earthquake, but already you can see in the P-wave, you get different amplitudes with different arrival that may not be correlated to the peak of the S-wave. But that's one of the category of algorithm, and it's got the advantage of being relatively fast as well. Next slide, please, Raj. The second set of algorithm is called earthquake characterization types. And what they do is an earthquake has occurred, and they try to identify as quick as possible the location of that earthquake and the magnitude of that earthquake, and then predict the shaking from that particular earthquake source. Again, so it's dependent on so it relies on a dense network near the epicentral region. and its function of the rupture size and the complexity of the rupture as well. So earthquakes like a magnitude 7.6 would take more than 30 seconds to unfold. And so you cannot give more than 30 seconds warning time ahead for large earthquakes. It's dependent on the earthquake size. And also from experience, it tends to underestimate magnitudes, although they are like new algorithms that manage to deal with that issue. And it could be also troubled by occurrence of aftershock that would just confuse the algorithm here. However, it provides a really robust idea of what kind of earthquake has just happened. And also, so if we have a look on, this is the illustration of such algorithm for magnitude 7.6. It doesn't provide warning for the epicentral region, but it's able to provide warning for the distant region. And also what's really important here, it's actually receiving the alert is independent whether you have stations there or not. So you need a lot of stations near your active sources, but you don't need that many where you're going to send the alert out. It's independent of where the stations are for receiving the alerts. And then we'll jump on to the next, the third category of algorithms. Thank you, Raj. These ones are called ground motion based, and they're independent of the earthquake. So these algorithms, they don't care about what magnitude, where was the earthquake centered. They just care about the level, the threshold of the S wave shaking your station. And they make a really crazy, but really powerful assumption that if a particular station reaches a threshold, they assume that 30 kilometers away, the ground shaking will have experienced very little attenuation, and so should be at least as intense as where it's been recorded. So for example, Upper Hutt starts shaking, and instantly, if it passes a threshold, it can send a warning straight to Wellington to say, hey, Wellington, we've got incoming strong shaking right now. So potentially you can provide 10 seconds of strong motion warning. And yeah, and it's earthquake source independent, so it's really fast. You need a certain network density. And the middle figure was just highlighting that station here is sending suddenly a radius of 30-kilometer region, some early warning. And so for our particular case study here, you can see that suddenly the epicentral region is really well covered, but it's highly, to receive the alert is highly sensor dependent, the density and the location of your sensors. And so this region here didn't receive the warning, even though it passed the threshold. And these sensors here somehow didn't trigger. And so also we have a gap in our warning here. And so can we fill up this gap by using, because cost is really important, can we think about filling up this gap using low cost sensors? And this is where I'm passing on to Jan who's going to cover this, this part of the story. Thank you. Up to you, Jan.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline, for explaining about the earthquake early warning algorithms. Kia ora, everyone. As Dr. Raj mentioned, even though earthquake early warning systems seems to be a promising approach to alert the public, the implementation cost of high-end earthquake early warning system is exorbitant. For example, the USA invested around $100 million to implement a high-end earthquake early warning network in California. If you take Aotearoa New Zealand as an example, there's a debate among the researchers whether spending millions of dollars for an earthquake early warning system is economically viable for a country with a population of 5 million. So this could be a reason for the absence of an earthquake early warning system in New Zealand. But the latest technological advances in sensors have motivated researchers to invent low-cost solutions such as micro electromechanical systems based ground motion sensors, which are also called as MEMS-based sensors. Currently, there are a number of research conducted in developing MEMS-based earthquake early warning systems around the world, which show promising results in alerting the public during an earthquake. These factors really motivated us to explore more on the feasibility of implementing an experimental low-cost earthquake early warning network in New Zealand. Therefore, as a first step of our investigation, we have conducted a systematic literature review to identify the findings and gaps in the low-cost earthquake early warning systems implemented around the world. Using the keyword search, we have filtered around 354 research articles And through closely reading the papers, we have reduced it to a further 77 papers. Raj, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So the reviewed literature revealed the following findings. So the first one is, many countries such as China, USA, Iceland, Italy, and South Korea have already implemented their low-cost earthquake early warning system in an experimental stage or in a public and alert generation stage. The second one is, in several countries, low-cost earthquake early warning systems are implemented as a secondary and a support system to their main high-end earthquake early warning system. In few countries, low-cost earthquake early warning systems serve as the primary earthquake early warning system. The third identified finding is, earthquake-related data processing in most of the earthquake early warning systems is done at a centralized server. And lastly, still most of the low-cost earthquake early warning systems did not try to adapt the modern-day earthquake early warning algorithms, which was mentioned by Dr. Caroline, which are fast and robust. These findings guided us to implement our approach in a novel way towards filling the identified research gaps. Now, Dr. Amal will explain our selected processing architecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandran, and kia ora, everyone. So you did hear from previous presenters that in New Zealand, officially, we do not have a earthquake early warning system in place, whereas in other countries like Japan, also having some vulnerabilities around earthquake, they do have such systems in US, but they do incur quite a lot of investment around those systems. And also Caroline very clearly explained to you the sort of the challenges around identifying or what we call the detection of these earthquakes, because she mentioned clearly that we are not going to make a prediction, because we only can give a warning once the event has occurred. So, and also it was mentioned that in the CRISiSLab, we have done studies for how the social acceptance of this one, and people have clearly said this is a very valuable service because their mindset can be prepared to face that, because the one who has faced such a situation only realize the trauma while you're going through an earthquake. So to take that preparedness that we know very well, which is to take the cover, it gives some time for you to prepare yourself in the mindset, and then also to prepare further mitigate the damage to the loss of life and the property. So what are the challenges around these making such system workable? So the fundamental technology challenges relating to the warning systems are how to sustain the power and communication. These two are like two key challenges in the recent the conference of multi-hazard conference that was spearheaded by the UN. I addressed some of these, but we are continually addressed. So in the next slide, you could see, Raj, we'll go to the next slide. Yeah. So we need to think differently from as what we have been thinking in the past. So we are not saying that the system that we have does not provide information. The Caroline clearly mentioned that we have very good system in place with very sophisticated sensors, but the density of that is not good enough to give adequate level of preparedness, which allow you to prepare yourself mentally and to if you have some hazardous things, doing some oil cooking, switch off, or to in a process plant to shut it down. So it is important that we should be able to look at how we can make use of some of the emerging technologies And nowadays, like we do hear quite a lot about what we call the disruptive technologies. And so can we use some of these emerging technologies to find solution to augment what we are doing now in New Zealand, so that we can give more preparedness for our people and then mitigate the loss to the life and the property. And so it's that requires like for us to think outside the box, beyond the traditional way of doing it. So that's called disruption. That's what you're trying to bring using some of these technologies. So the Chantujan mentioned about the MEMS, those are the sensors. And so in the recent times, there have been lots of technological advancements around sensors, the ability to process data, the computational power, and then communication. So we go to the next slide and see, because some of the challenges previously was the can we sustain some of these at the time of disaster, because these are some of the disasters could make these critical infrastructures inoperational. There can be loss of power, there can be loss of communication, but can we make available the warnings to happen while these the processes are taking place? So I'm sure you may have heard some of this terminology, the edge and the cloud. So in the traditional way, what we used to do was like we gather this data, as you would remember Caroline explained, and then we get to a central location. So these are storage and the processing location, and this has been given the term cloud. So these are various cloud providers we have heard. So that's what now even New Zealand and many other countries are embarking on. Not that we did not have them. We had the private cloud. Now we are now going into more public cloud for bring more scalability and then more agility and the more reduction in the operational cost and the capex. But what we are embarking on is what's called edge processing. So edge means we are close to us. So some of us may not know that most of us have gone through in the recent or in the past 2 decades around telecom infrastructures. We move from like a wired copper wire system to other systems. So what we call the next generation networks. So in that also we introduce what we call the edge processing. So you find closer to your home, some of the boxes sitting next to your curb, where does the processing, that's edge, so it's close to you. So we are bringing it further into your home, and then we are trying to bring that sensor device, which is the edge device sitting in your home, and then connected through the communication to process that one. So if you move on to the next slide, so we are making this connection not from like a what we call the star connection, where every sensor node connected to a central location, which does not provide adequate warning time to us. We are trying to see whether we can process that in the neighborhood itself. So that's why you would, if you followed Caroline presentation carefully, she mentioned about the 30-kilometer radius, and she gave an example if earthquake happened around Hut, and then we can easily give a warning to Wellington CBD that so there's a quick on the way. So you could see we are connected among every sensor node, rather than from each node to a central location. So by this way, we are disrupting the way that the warning is generated. So this can be provide more resilient and robustness against the loss of other infrastructure. So this device can be even your mobile phone, which we are also experimenting on that one. So with that one, I will hand back to Chantudan to go more deeper into what and how we do process in those at node levels. What do you, Chantudan?
Thanks, Amal. Yeah, thanks, Raj. As Dr. Amal mentioned, we are processing the real-time ground motion data at the node level. So we are detecting the earthquakes and disseminating the alerts completely at the node level without any centralized processing units. When it comes to earthquake detection algorithm, as mentioned by Dr. Caroline, we have selected a ground motion-based algorithm called PLUM, which is very fast and reliable in generating alerts. So let's see how our approach works on generating alerts. Raj, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, Raj, yeah, thanks so much. Cool. So, as mentioned earlier, our selected earthquake early warning algorithm, PLUM, disseminates alerts only within a radius of 30-kilometer area. Sensor map, which is on the left-hand side, shows the installed respiratory ground motion sensor and their location in the Wellington area within a 30-kilometer radius. So these are the sensors which we are mainly used for the testing of our proposed architecture and the network. So let's see how we are generating an alert. In this particular approach, we do not generate an alert if one sensor exceeds the predefined ground checking threshold. Because using only one sensor for detecting an earthquake could increase the number of false alerts. We need to ensure the alert disseminated to the end users is reliable and accurate. For that, we are using multi-station triggering concept. If one sensor exceeds a predefined threshold, then we confirm with the neighboring sensor to ensure whether it is a valid earthquake before generating an alert. For our approach, we have selected two-station triggering for generating an actual alert. If the exceedance of the threshold is reported by two sensors, then the alert will be disseminated to the other sensors. So it is obvious that the reliability of the alert can be increased with the number of sensors used for the alert detection and generation. However, it will eventually increase the system latency of the proposed network. So we decided to use only two sensors in generating an alert at the moment. So let's see how this two-station triggering works. Imagine that the epicenter on the bottom left corner creates an earthquake, which is on the left-hand side of the slide. Then the sensor one will get the S wave at first. So the sensor one will exceed a predefined threshold at first. At that moment, the alert generation event and the timer of the system will get started. So this is clearly mentioned in the first green arrow in the flowchart. Immediately, the sensor one will send the internal alert for all the sensors within the 30-kilometer radius that I am exceed the threshold. So in this area, those sensors will be sensors 2, 3, 4, and 5. If any of the remaining sensors detect a shaking within the 10 seconds waiting time, then the actual alert will be disseminated to all the sensors within the 30-kilometer region. Else, the event will get deleted. Can you go to the next slide, Raj? Thank you. So to test the performance of our proposed approach, we need to have some historical earthquakes, since we can't create real ones. So what we did was, we designed a virtual earthquake data simulator, where we can insert the historical data and trigger time to it. Eventually, the simulator will output the saved historical data according to the given trigger time. We installed this simulator to all the Raspberry Shake sensors used for the testing and triggered the simulator according to the selected epicenters and the S-wave travel time. The simulators will emit the ground motion data within the sensors like an actual earthquake. The emitted data will be captured by a PLUM-based detection algorithm to detect the S-waves. Can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So it's going to be a little bit technical. So before jumping into our performance comparison, let's see how we define our system latency. So we are calculating the system latency of our network using three parameters, such as the detection time, the transmission time for the actual alert, and the S-wave travel time between the first two sensors involved in the earthquake detection. So let's look at the image presented here. Take the dashed red circle as the S wave from an earthquake. First, it reaches the sensor 1, where the timer gets started and our system starts working. Eventually, the sensor 1 will detect the shaking and disseminate the internal alert to the neighboring sensors 2 and 3. This will happen before the arrival of the S wave at the sensor 2, since the digital communication is much faster than the S wave travel speed. After the S wave reaches the sensor 2 will detect the ground shaking. At that moment, the total system latency T1 will be the addition of the S wave travel time from the sensor 1 to 2 and the S wave detection time at the sensor 2. So then what happens? Then the sensor 2 will disseminate the actual alert to all the sensors within the 30 kilometers radius, which will add the alert transmission time to the total system latency. So this is how we define the system latency of our proposed architecture. Can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So now we are clear with the approach and how we define the system latency. So let's compare our decentralized approach with the conventional centralized processing approaches in terms of system latency and warning time. In the illustration, the earthquake will be generated by the epicenter, which is on the bottom left corner of the map. So the S wave will initially reach the sensors 1 and 2 respectively. According to our algorithm, sensor 2 will disseminate the actual alert to all the sensors in the 30 kilometers radius. So let's take the sensor 5 as an example. The maximum warning time can be achieved by an earthquake early warning system for sensor 5 is 8.2 seconds. This is the time taken for the S wave to travel from the sensor 1 to sensor 5. But the actual warning time, for sure, it will depend on the system latency of the earthquake early warning system. To compare the warning time of our proposed approach with the traditional centralized processing approaches, we have implemented a centralized server using the Amazon Web Services virtual machine. So for that, we have selected the TCP communication protocol for sending the alerts for our approach between the sensors, since it is very fast and reliable compared to the commonly used MQTT communication protocol. However, we have compared our approach with centralized processing architecture using both the communication protocol, MQTT and TCP. You can clearly see in the results that our approach outperforms centralized processing architecture with both TCP and MQTT. When it comes to commonly used centralized processing architecture with MQTT, our system provides 2 seconds leading time where it can deliver a warning time of 6.78 seconds to the sensor 5 compared to the 4.69 seconds of the MQTT-based centralized approach. 2 seconds can be small in a general context, but during an earthquake, each second matters. We believe that our system latency can be further reduced by increasing the sensor density, where it will reduce the S wave travel time between the first 2 sensors. Now, Dr. Raj will explain what we achieved so far and what we are going to do in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Shantujan. So as Shantujan explained, so we ran some experiments. If you go to the paper, go and have a look. So we ran five earthquake scenarios and 60 simulations with variety of data sets. So conclusion is we managed to demonstrate that our decentralized processing architecture with low-cost sensors outperform most of the implemented networks currently in a traditional way. So in earthquake detection, system latency, and redundancy. So one of the things I think Shantujan mentioned in that scenario, so for the limitation of availability of sensors, so we have got limited number of sensors, but we can clearly prove that in centralized situations, when the number of sensors are getting more and more, the system latency is going to increase. So that will so we have seen that in that way, having decentralized processing can be really advantageous. And other important thing, our approach basically, as Shantujan explained earlier, in that particular scenario, it's in the range of 200 to 250 milliseconds. So from all the 60 simulations, we managed to identify in variety of situations that we managed to do it in detection in 250 milliseconds at the node level. And also, we showed that we can reduce system latencies and capable of maximizing the warning time as well. So in between 1.24 seconds to 2.88 seconds. So that will allow, with that kind of system latencies, we can give the maximum benefit from the warning end. And finally, so what are our aims going forward? So at the moment, I mean, the funding came from EQC and Massey University. So it's kind of started as a 2-year project. But fortunately, we have got RNC funded project now. Chantujan is doing some further work on this, where we want to look at how we can use different types of low-cost sensors in the same network, kind of synergizing the available sensors. If you look at in Wellington region, there are a lot of variety of low-cost sensors installed. So how can we get the benefit of all these different types of sensors probably installed for variety of other reasons? So that's something we want to check, and also we want to expand and see from the algorithm and from support from the seismologists like Caroline and few other colleagues, whether we can use P-wave instead of S-wave in a more reliable way in this same kind of architecture. And other really important thing, vision of zero use of internet, whether we can achieve that. Now, having decentralized network probably give us kind of one step closer to doing that, because we are not relying on 100% centralized, all centralized networks, although still we are using internet at the moment. What we are looking at going forward is try to use LoRa kind of technology for communication in between sensors. So that's something we are going to test. So because the amount of data we are putting out from sensor is basically just a status change from 0 to 1, because it's only alert. We are only putting alert out from each of these sensors. So it's very small bandwidth. So LoRa kind of technology, that's long range. So LoRa means basically long range. If you understand the communication, different types of communication networks, LoRa have been kind of identified as one of the useful systems if the bandwidth is low, so not dependent on internet. So that's another option we want to try. And also we want to keep strengthening our community of practice and keep discussing and increase the awareness. So at the end of the day, probably if you are going to have a earthquake early warning national network in New Zealand, so the work we have been doing with the communities can be very useful kind of information for someone to pick it up and use them to develop a better system in the future. So with that, I'll stop. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, CRISiSLab team. That's an awesome presentation. And now we have Dr. Marian Tan. She will be helping us to facilitate the questions. And I already saw some questions in the chat box.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. And really, we have some good questions coming in. So first question is, how do you generate the simulated earthquake? How do you know whether the sensor is sensing an S wave instead of a P wave? Maybe a little bit of clarification on your simulation. Chantujan, Raj, or Amal?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm happy to answer. So basically, we have used some historical data. I mean, so where we have got some clear S-wave information in that. So we fed that into the processing algorithm. So so what we want to do is whether so varying data sets, so different levels of shaking intensity, because we ran 60 simulations. So we hope we have covered kind of a significant amount of scenarios from that. So we understand that, okay, we further need to improve the algorithm. But if you look at most of the Plum algorithm detection done, it is not that challenging if you have got S-wave to identify. It's a simple threshold detection mechanism we are using. So we are actually closely following the Plum algorithm detection methods used in Japan at the moment. So,
thank you, Raj.
Yeah.
I think, Martha, you've unmuted yourself. I don't know if you have something to respond to this.
Well, it's just if you're only taking the S waves, then you don't know, if you're only looking for the S waves at the beginning of the simulations, you don't know what's going to happen when you have both S and P coming in. Because the biggest earthquakes will trigger on the P waves. And then that will, maybe that's fine. Maybe that's all you care about. But yeah, it just needs to be at least, yeah, it would be better to understand what's going on there. Whether you just, I would say rather than P wave or S wave, maybe you just want to say the biggest shaking, the first big shaking, because you get a big shaking from the P wave if it's really big, and then you could get a lot earlier if you're not waiting for the S wave. You get a much better, quicker signal then. So yeah, just.
Can I jump in quickly?
Yeah, yes,
of course.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Caroline Holden here. Martha, that's a great question, and actually the answer is it doesn't matter, because we just so we assume that most the Plum algorithm is really powerful for strong shaking and giving this this warning in this really sensitive region where usually we don't get warning, which is where you get most of the strong shaking, and it's very likely that will be driven by the S waves. But then so we make the assumption that there would be the S wave, and this is based on the threshold, the very high threshold with Plum is based on. Now, if we start to, you're right, Martha, if we start to trying to make Plum, a very sensitive algorithm to very small level of shaking, then we're going to come into some lots of missed alert, because you're going to give this 10 seconds, but the P waves are a lot faster than the S waves, and so we're going to miss out. But it's very unlikely, but it's a really good question and a good clarification to have with the end users, that this is where Plum performs the best, in the epicentral region. And we assume it's the S waves, but we don't analyze anything. And this is there's no processing or anything. It's very binary, 1 or 0. And this is what makes it really powerful. The least amount of human intervention and assumption. But it's great point, Martha. Yeah.
Thank you. A really nice discussion there. Thanks, Caroline, Raj, and Martha. So we have a question from Sepi. So the question is, do you think mixing the 3 methods Caroline explained might improve the performance robustness of earthquake early warning?
Yeah, I mean, probably Caroline can also answer from our end. Yeah, so this particular piece is actually to work with the low-cost sensors, right? So we initially wanted to use something that is workable initially. So we want to go for the least complicated way, as Caroline mentioned. So the method we are using is quite robust, but it is quite simple. So it is really suitable for this environment. So for the next step, of course, we are looking at these ways, okay, whether we can combine these different mechanisms. If you look at even in Japan, for example, there are different hybrid methods, but it all depends on how much we can do at the node level. But we'll have to remember that the performance of the processors at the nodes are getting improved as well. So definitely we are going to look at these hybrid mechanisms in the future. So at the moment we have started kind of from very basic kind of a step. So going forward,
Thank you, Raj. Caroline, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and actually this is the philosophy that Japan, Taiwan, and I'm not sure about the US yet, but have adopted. So doing hybrid system and weighing in which early warning algorithm should prevail depending on the earthquake source. And so Japan is using Plum operationally as well. I'm not sure the US has done some heavy, or California has done some heavy testing. Maybe Jen can comment whether this is operational yet there or not.
Yeah, sorry, I can join in. Plum is not operational in the US for some interesting reasons. We have concerns about over alerting with it. It can be sensitive with the settings suggested for the US. It tends to trigger for small magnitude earthquakes with unusually high ground motion very close to the epicenter, and that's a problem in a sort of very densely populated region where we don't want people being alerted sort of every few days, basically. And also the over alerting in terms of distance. But we are working on it. They are working on it to configure it appropriately for the area.
Thank you, Jen.
If I could add something, if I could add something to that, you would remember from the last slide of Raj, he mentioned about the ecosystem. So that's our sort of a final vision that, let's say, if I put the head of like just a citizen in New Zealand, what I want is a bit of peace of mind before an earthquake happening in my neighborhood, so that I'm not worried too much about like what device I have and how that's processed and how they. So if that can provide more reliable sort of a lead time for me to prepare myself mentally and then and beyond, that sets that. So that's why we are in fact looking at. So once we do the work that we are doing, we are also trying to see, like that's why we did not exclude what's in place. So we do value that. So how we can combine all of those systems together, like Raj mentioned, hybrid system, where we can optimize this so we can have a more resilience in capturing it. So these IoTs can be connected in using various communication technologies, and also they can be provided to many people through many means. So the processing algorithm and the delivery mechanism, and then the device on which that is received need to be sort of agnostic to everything else. So because what people want as a service is a bit of a warning. So that's a kind of ultimate aim and vision that we have. So which require lots of work on the way. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks, Amal. And clearly you see that there's like this trend of future, research. I just want to also acknowledge Jen Andrews, who just gave her insight from the US system. Jen's a seismologist at GNS, but she was the developer for Shake Alert earthquake early warning system for the US in the last 8 years. So really great insight as well. So thanks for that discussion. And we do have a question from Jen as well for the team, and hopefully the team can help give some insight to this. So with an algorithm triggered by just 2 sensors, how do you anticipate identifying and accounting for faulty or noisy sensors that could lead to false alerts? So I guess that's
a very good question. I mean, obviously, it is better if you can have more sensors. Now, what Chantujan has presented only one sensor, right? So that particular scenario we have shown is, so the original sensor was in Karori, and then the second actual alert generated, where alert is generated is Marion, it's your sensor, basically. So those sensors are quite far apart, right? And we perfectly know that low-cost sensors can be really noisy. I mean, so for example, in Karori, my sensor is located at my living room, right? So and in your case, probably it is in your living room as well, Marion. So, but the thing is, our vision is hopefully kind of ecosystem. Even your phone can become a sensor, so the density will improve so much. So we can definitely have more than 2 sensors. So we have tested out even within our experimental network. We had that for that particular scenario 5 sensors. We have increased to three sensors, but the 3rd sensor in that particular scenario is far away. So that means effective warning time for the 5th sensor is further reduced, because S-wave travel time will have to account the S-wave travel time to the 3rd sensor. But when sensor density is increased, we can easily increase the number of verifying sensors. So that definitely in an actual situation that will happen. I mean, otherwise I totally agree. If you totally want to rely on low-cost sensor network, that's something we need to think of. But from our end, our vision is why not we combine high-end networks to low-end network, that hybrid version, because we can actually adapt the same mechanism, just plugging a Raspberry Pi into a high-end GeoNet sensor, we can achieve the same. So you'll have more reliable network sensors in the same network. So that kind of vision we have into the future.
Thanks, Raj. And Chandrajan, do you have a comment on this?
Yeah. So adding to what Raj said, so he was right. Like, so we are planning to increase the density in the future by adding more and more sensors into the network. And also, if you are mentioning about the sudden spikes, so if you are having 2 sensors in 2 locations, and if there are sudden spikes in 2 sensors at the same moment, so you could think like it could result in an earthquake, in a false alert. So for that, what we are doing is we are in our algorithm, we are using a time window. We are checking the complete time window for whether it is passing the certain threshold. We are just not checking a certain time whether the threshold is getting passed. We are completely checking for the window. It's like the window will be around 3-second window. So we are taking a continuous 25 samples to check whether it is an actual earthquake. So we are more working on that algorithm as well. And I think in the future it will reduce the noise issue and the fault issue as well.
Thank you, Chandrajan. Actually, I have one follow-up question to that. So in terms of this time window, will it differ based on the distance of the sensors? Will you kind of set up this time frame, or how do you set this time window? How do you set that time frame?
So before setting up the time frame, what we do is like we are installing sensors at different locations. So we will automatically characterize the noise characteristics, because the noise will differ from each scenarios for each locations. So according to the noise, we will define the minimum threshold for each sensors. Then according to the noise level, if the threshold is exceeded, we will just open a window and we'll wait for the 25 further samples. Whether if the 25 samples exceeds the particular threshold, then we will disseminate the alerts.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so we have 1 minute left, and probably just get a final comment from the team on regarding this webinar. Yes, Raj.
Yeah, I mean, I should thank the community. I mean, they have been engaging us for a long time. And this time, actually, we have invited some of our sensor hosts as well. I can see Anders, and I saw someone else as well. So at the moment, we have installed our own sensors in a public host as well. But now our sensor algorithm is available for anyone with Raspberry Shakes at this stage to download and install. So if anyone is using Raspberry Shake, you are more than welcome to join our experimental network. So that's kind of invitation, and hopefully Raspberry Shake will kind of issue some sort of a official request, not official, but they will make a request for the New Zealand Raspberry Shake community to join. But in addition, we are planning to engage with other sensor manufacturers, because our vision is to utilize other types of sensors. So we are already in touch with P-alert sensors. We are already have kind of a very early stages. We have talked to CSI. We want to continue with those discussions and see whether we can incorporate some of our algorithms in their sensors, in their microcontrollers, if possible. So that's something we are kind of going to do in next few months to come.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Raj. Thank you, everyone, for your time. If you have a Raspberry Shake, please get in contact with us, and if we can try to connect you, or maybe get a Raspberry Shake. That will be really fun. But anyway, we'll inform you
Jonathan,
for next.
I think, Jonathan, do you have more?
I think he's probably waving
He was
goodbye.
saying bye, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've reached at 11 a.m. So just really want to thank everybody for your participation, and keep in touch, and we'll look forward to advancing this research.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
I will
you.
share the
Everyone.
recording afterwards.
Thank
Have
you.
a nice day
Thank
ahead.
you.
Thank
See
you,
you, everyone.
CRISiSLab team.